Hey, hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Green Film Festival of San Francisco 2022. I'm Jason Wolos. I'm one of the programmers here at SF Indie Fest. Thank you so much for being with us. This is the Q&A for the program In Too Deep. We are very fortunate to have three of the filmmakers here with us, calling from different parts of the world. Hi, filmmakers.
Good
Hey,
morning.
Thank you for being here, and also congratulations not only getting the film festival, but making these wonderful short films. Congratulations.
thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Yeah.
And let me just break the ice and see where you guys are calling from. Lara, where are you located? Where are you calling in from?
I am calling from Western Montana, so in the mountains of Missoula, Montana.
Fantastic. And which movie is yours?
Is Life in the Land, the Big Hole Valley?
Big Hole Valley. Okay, thank you. And Ali, how about yourself? Where are you calling from?
Good evening. All the way across the pond in London, UK.
Fantastic. Good to
Yeah,
have you here. And
yeah.
Martin, how about you?
Yeah, I'm even further away. I'm in Amsterdam, and I'm here to represent the film In Too Deep: The True Cost of Deep Sea Mining.
In Too Deep. And Ali, what was your film? Did we
Yeah,
mention that?
exactly.
Yeah, that's the name of the film, In Too Deep. Yeah, so it's got the same title as this session. It's confusing though.
That's where I
Yeah.
got confused, but I now it will make so
I
much
know, I was
sense.
like, I'm not part of that film.
I know. I was like, oh,
Good title.
did we film that? I don't know. No, I'm here to represent restoring Italy's wild heart.
Got it. Got it. Okay, great. Well, thank you for being here. First off, congratulations, wonderful films. What was the inspiration? What sparked you to make this movie? Laura, we'll start with you. Was there a moment? Was there a pursuit, a cause?
Yeah, so this film is actually part of a larger project titled Life in the Land, and it's a series of 4 films, each 30 minutes each, and 18 podcast episodes. And then this is one snippet of one of the regions. So it's the project is telling stories from folks who have an intimate connection with the land in Montana. Um, and it's all stories that talk about how we can use locally led solutions to benefit the health of the land and the communities that live there, as well as showing the value in working in collaboration with non-traditional partners. And you get folks together that historically may have been very much divided, and you see these examples of people working together and making really exciting things happen to move forward for the health of every part of life on that landscape. So
Excellent. Thank you. Martin, how about you? What started it all for this wonderful film?
Yeah, so I should point out that this film, In Too Deep, it was actually commissioned by the Deep Sea Conservation Coalition. So that's a huge alliance of about 80 NGOs, all of these organizations that are very worried about this new threat on the horizon for the ocean that's called deep sea mining, something that's definitely out of sight because it's happening way out in the deep ocean, but also in the international waters, so very far away from land. And the area that it's specifically focused on is called the Clarion-Clipperton Zone. That's a huge area roughly between Hawaii and Mexico that's full of these metals that the deep sea mining industry is keen to get from about 4 kilometers down into the deep ocean. And so actually there are more filmmakers that are keen on this topic because it is a very hot topic, because actually deep sea mining has been a threat for quite a few decades now, but it's set to go basically live from an exploratory phase to an actual exploitation phase because of a few political developments within these companies. But there is a little silver lining to this story, because actually it is a threat that we could still nip in the bud if we take the right decisions, and then we could stop what could become another very serious issue for the ocean.
Well, before I get to you, Ali, what inspired you to make your film? Um, just because I was inspired to ask a question right now to you, Martin, how can we nip it in the bud? Like, it seems like a huge force, just the economic force behind it, probably to go and
Yeah.
deep sea mine. How can we help?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's essentially three echelons, you could say. There's, of course, the general public that need to become aware of this, because it is an issue that's not very much on the radar. So, you know, a lot of people should be watching this film or other films that are going to be made about this topic. But then there's specific audiences, of course. There's the policymakers. There's the International Seabed Authority. That's a UN body that governs this kind of industry and everything that happens in the deep sea. They actually need to take the right decisions, but they will do so, of course, under public pressure. But then there's the scientific community who have come out, they've briefed a statement, and they're rallying behind that to really make it very clear that the scientific community opposes this industry. And what's perhaps most important is that there's an industry statement circulating that was actually initiated by the car manufacturers, by BMW. That was an important one. But now there's many other large companies involved, and they are basically saying to the deep sea mining industry, look, we don't want you to even engage in this because we have no interest in these metals. We can do our business without it. And we prefer to do that because we don't want any kind of responsibility for ocean destruction. So there are actually very tangible steps that could be taken to stop this.
Yeah, and you know, one of the reasons why I am very happy that you filmmakers made these movies is the first step that you mentioned. It's like we got to be made aware of this stuff. You know, the ocean. It's just you look at it, you appreciate it, it's beautiful, but you don't realize the things going on underneath that could potentially destroy it. You know, or right in front of our face in our own backyards on farms and lands and habitats everywhere. And you know, I'm going to talk too much here because we don't have enough time for all the wonderful films you guys have, and each one of you could have your own little Zoom meeting here. But let's go on to you, Laura. And Molly, thanks for joining us. We'll be with you in a second. I mean, Ali, what was your inspiration for your film?
Yeah, the inspiration, I mean, it's kind of in the same way Lara was talking about communities kind of working alongside their wilderness. The Restoring Italy's Wild Heart, again, was a film like Martin's, was commissioned by actually a UK tour operator who's working with an incredible organization called Rewilding Apennines. And so the Apennines, if you are unfamiliar, is right in the spine, the center of Italy. And it's this kind of beating wild heart of the country that houses Apennine wolves. You've got the Marciscan brown bear, which is like the last of its kind. There's a very, very few like surviving because of the growing human populations in this area. And basically what Rewilding have done as an organization is this hugely ambitious project to create coexistence within this area. They know that the people have had kind of their run-ins with the wildlife, and they know that the people live there too. So they need to kind of work with them to create a more of a, and they have to go, they're so multi-layered and it's a very, very complex structure. But what they're trying to do essentially in a nutshell is create corridors. The Apennine Mountains is split up into 5 national parks. And what this rewilding organization is doing is creating coexistence corridors where within them, the wildlife is able to move between these national parks quite safely. But rather than just turning up and saying, right, farmers, these bears, they're going to be moving through your land now. Sorry, you need to stop what you're doing and not exist because the bears take priority. That kind of model just doesn't work. We all know that. That just doesn't happen. You need to get the buy-in from the locals. So it's an exploratory film that is enabling the side of like the locals, the farmers, to hear from them, and how so there are some various people who are kind of wanting to help. They want to better the wildlife.
Yeah, that kind of theme, topic, subject has come up in a few different shorts this year in different parts of the world, whether it be Italy or in America with elk, let's say, where their migration patterns or panthers in Florida, they're actually now considering, and this is good, when building a freeway or a highway or a road, providing animal bridges. But I digress. Molly, you joined us late. Thanks for being here. Quickly, what is your film, Molly, and what inspired you to make your film?
Sure, thanks. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so I'm Molly Gore, and my film is Total Disaster. And it's a short documentary about an action that we did in Paris in the fall of last year, targeting Total Energies, which is a gigantic energy company that's trying to build a pipeline through East Africa. So essentially what we were inspired to do it because we were inspired by the work of the coalition that is targeting this energy company and trying to stop the pipeline. And we were also inspired by what a stunning job this oil company had done of greenwashing its own reputation. And when a company is doing something like that, it can be really effective and really fun to kind of give them a taste of their own medicine. So we essentially just tried to one-up them in their own greenwashing and launched a campaign on their behalf that was allegedly going to relocate all the animals in the way of the pipeline to France. And by accentuating what they were doing in a slightly more absurd way, we were hoping to kind of lay bare exactly how much lying they are doing to the public and give them a little bit of a PR disaster to deal with and scare the financiers off of the project.
Greenwashing.
Yeah.
That's the first time I heard that. Is that a new term? I like it. That sounds appropriate. Greenwashing.
Yeah, it's been in circulation for a bit. It's basically greenwashing is when a company sort of picks up on the language and the aesthetic of a socially responsible or environmentally responsible company and brands themselves as that and kind of hides behind that marketing in order to keep kind of doing business as usual in the background. So it's sort of the frontward facing lie of being, environmentally responsible when you're really not. It's just
I got that kind of sense with Martin. You're the big companies or the organizations that are doing exploration. It seems like greenwashing, if you will, if I could use that term there.
Well, you might be on mute.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, absolutely, Jason. There's a lot of greenwashing going on in deep sea mining. One of the companies involved is called the Metals Company, formerly known as Deep Green. And actually, what they've been doing has been super helpful for me because, like I was saying before, the issue is happening very far away and in the deep ocean as well. So how to visualize this story, that's quite complicated. So I realized that one of the things I needed to do was to have a really fancy animation created to explain how deep sea mining will work, what happens actually on the seafloor and why it has such a huge impact. But then, of course, during my research, I came across all these wonderful videos that had been created by the Metals Company. And then under the fair use agreement, and I did have to, of course, run this by some legal advice, I was able to use those videos in which the Metals Company is trying to promote what they're doing and trying to show how green that is. And if you intercut that with interviews where basically people are saying the opposite, that gives a very, very strong impression of what's happening. And just if I may, there's a very complicated part of this story because the reason deep sea mining has become so urgent is that the Metals Company has engaged in a kind of a liaison with a country called Nauru, which is this tiny country in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Now, the Metals Company needs a sponsoring state, and Nauru has essentially been bribed to do that. And so that's very hard to visualize, and also because there's very few pictures of Nauru. But then I found that the Metals Company has done a brilliant video in which they talk about all this. They've got the president of Nauru. And so I was able to use that and then intercut that with interviews. And I guess when you're researching any film, you should also, of course, be researching what your opponent has to say, and not just to ridicule them, but also to really understand their arguments. Because I do believe that these people aren't just plainly evil. Of course, there is a financial interest, but I'm certain that some of these people truly believe that what they're doing is for the benefit of the planet. But of course, there's arguments against that as well, which we want to put forward in the film.
Yeah. Laura, Ali, any thoughts on this question, this topic? Did you come across any kind of evil greenwashing in your research?
Greenwashing as such probably comes in different forms, I guess. What in the rewilding side of things, I think perhaps it's trying to pull the wool over eyes, perhaps with some of the locals, maybe trying to give misinformation.
Yeah.
But for sure, like I know that term all too well. It's used a lot, and it's very much, you do see it very like a lot this year, just especially in the last couple of years, companies just kind of finding the sexy green hook and then just using it, and then they go, great, we're done, so it's
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Laura, any comments?
Yeah, I mean, with my film, it's kind of similar to Ollie's, where you're dealing with land issues and the residents who live there and who have lived there for potentially generations. So it takes a different form as far as communication gaps, I think, is what you see amongst communities on the ground. In my region that this film is similar to Ollie's, it's ranchers who also have, conflicts with wolves and that type of thing. That component isn't in this cut of the film, but it's a reality of what folks on the ground are dealing with. And so you see the division in that topic, but really when you talk to folks, it kind of comes down to just a communication breakdown, that especially in these rural locations where there's limited amount of information sources that they're getting, that they attach to the one that they're getting the most readily. And sometimes that's not true, but it comes from both sides, right? So even just from the environmental side movement, they're also misinformed with realities that ranchers are dealing with on the ground. So I think it's just important to remember that these lack of communications go both ways, at least in the context of this film, of issues that folks who live on the landscape are dealing with.
Right. And it's good that you've made these films, and we have these environmental film festivals, and we now have video and media accessible everywhere to go and convey and communicate the challenges facing us today. I think thank goodness we have them now, but we're behind schedule. What are some things you hope that audiences gain? Laura, since we're on you right now, what do you hope audiences walk away when they see your movie, or what action do they take, or anything?
I hope really just that they get an extra glimpse in communication that they didn't have before, and information, and see that the folks, a lot of the folks on the ground, the ranchers who have kind of been painted as, anti-environmentalist movement, that they're true conservationists, and not just because their livelihood depends on it. They genuinely want to continue the health of the ecosystem that they're very much a part of, and they're on the ground every day stewarding that land, and they know the intricacies of every microbe on that landscape more than a lot of environmentalists. And so just to show that there is that common ground that folks can jump off of.
Ollie, how about you? What would you like audiences to remember, walk away, feel? Watching
Yeah, I mean, I would love them to come away just seeing that, like, that it's that positive message, really, of that, even in a small way, that there is great big change happening. I mean, what their intricate model, like I said, in very multi-layered, has started to work, and you can't just take progress on an individual level. It has to come from a whole community to be behind it. And there is a particular town in the Apennines called Veterano sul Giuzio. The whole community is known as a bear smart community, where everybody is in tune with what is going on. And that is the only way that the message gets knocked on. And the kind of the positive progress comes in the form of no bear conflict, no wolf conflict in that particular region in the last 2 years since they've been doing this model, which I won't get into. But it's more just taking this particular model and showing the rest of the world that it can work, and it's multi-layered. So that's what I'd hope comes from it.
Great. Martin, how about you? What do you hope an audience remember? Besides, I must commend you guys all on just well-constructed, well-made films. And Martin and Ollie's, I do remember beautiful imagery, great cinematography in all of them. Besides enjoying and being entertained, I just wanted to comment on how'd you get that footage, Martin?
Well, actually, It's interesting because the film was, of course, produced in the middle of the pandemic. And I've always argued that the camera is sort of our passport to the world as filmmakers. It's a great way to see the world through a lens. But for this film, it had a very low carbon footprint, small carbon footprint, because I produced it all basically from my home. I shot a few interviews myself, other interviews I had to coordinate remotely like we're doing now over Zoom. I think us as filmmakers, we've had to learn how to operate in a different way, although I do hope that we get to travel again and we are doing that. But then one scene basically landed on our doorstep because one of the vessels, actually the largest vessel that will start with this deep sea mining industry, is being outfitted here in Rotterdam, which is this 45-minute drive for me. So me and the person who initiated the film, Farah Obaidullah, we actually drove out and we got to see that massive ship and film it. And it's a very important sequence because it shows you that this is not something that's happening very far away. It is actually right there in front of you. And to just answer your question about the takeaway, I hope that, yeah, like I said, people need to be informed about this issue. I think the film has a lot of information, and it also shows how it connects to people's own world and how what's happening in the deep sea or the deep sea mining industry is linked to, or potentially will be linked to, a lot of the products we use, such as electronics and cars.
Yeah.
But it's specifically for the Bay Area, of course, the film is very relevant. Firstly, because it's an ocean area, of course, and actually, you know, this is set to start taking place in the Pacific, which is a huge ocean. But what's happening in the deep ocean will ultimately also affect or ricochet onto the rest of the ocean along the American coastline. And secondly, there's a lot of industries, of course, in the Bay Area that somehow could be linked to deep sea mining, and it would be great if they also took a stand to oppose this.
Yeah. Thank you, Molly. Takeaways for audiences. Go and stage fake press conferences.
Yeah, well, you know, go for it.
That was impressive too. I mean, you guys pulled it off.
Thank you. Yeah, it took a lot of planning, but
I mean, and I'm sidetracked again. I could be sidetracked with all your films today because they're wonderful. Did the real press people think that those model birds really were being
murdered?
Did you get some gasps and oh my gods and reactions?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think there was a point at which, after the blood sprayed, there was more, folks kind of started to catch on a little bit. To the sense that they probably didn't think the birds were real anymore, but they didn't know what the hell was going on. Right. So it was just kind of like a sense of bafflement and confusion and a little bit of horror. And I don't know, some believed it, some didn't, but yeah, generally it caused the amount of chaos that we were hoping for. So that was positive.
A well-edited scene.
What's that?
A well-edited scene.
Thank you. We did have a super amazing editor.
Takeaway.
Yeah, I think what we would hope for is, firstly, to have helped at least to lift the veil on this oil company and to have exposed them for what they're actually doing, so that the public can be positively disillusioned and know the true character of their work. And secondly, for the audience to have a real sense of who it is that's responsible for these projects going through, like the banks that are financing it, the companies that insure it, and the government that is enabling all of that to happen. There's a lot, it's a multi-pronged effort, and you can do things like if your bank has money in something like this, you can pull your money out, you can make your voice heard, and enough of us do that. We can supply the kind of pressure that is needed to stop these kinds of projects from expanding, which we need to. So
yeah. So for all of you, how do we get the general public to take action? How do we do that? Do you guys are you hopeful that it's possible? Molly, we're still on you. Let's have you.
Yeah, all right.
I know it's a hard question, but there's one thing. You watch the movie and then you come away and you talk about it, which is good, but we need to get it ingrained in our daily life.
I think, yeah, and I think the amount of things that we're up against can feel overwhelming sometimes. And so staying small and local with your efforts there's really something to be said there. I think the reason why I am attracted to working in the way that we do through humor and satire and spectacle and all of it is because at least for me, it keeps me in touch with what I'm fighting for and the side of humanity that makes me glad to be alive. You know, it's like this is our life, you know, and we're all here together. And any way of acting that can keep us in touch with our sense of common humanity, I think will give us the kind of fuel for the long haul that we need. So that looks different for everybody. It depends on what they love.
Right.
Yeah.
Good answer. Martin, how about you, or Ollie?
Sorry.
What kind of action are you hopeful? What kind of action
Oh,
should people take?
it's a really hard one, but I think
Yeah.
like I'm actually gonna like what Molly said about keeping it local, because obviously my film is more focusing on how can we ultimately create a more of a rewilded planet, but it's really gone down into a micro focus on this small area in the Apennines as a model of how to do that. And I think that message perhaps goes on in that you need to stay local and work locally, because without an organization such as the incredible one that I was fortunate enough to work with, you need a driving force. You need someone who is going to really put the shift in to work with the local communities, be the voice in between, understand everyone. You can't do that on a big scale. You have to go right down small. And I think the takeaway and I hope is that, you know, if you're gonna rewild the world, you've got to start very, very, very small.
In your own world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. Martin?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to this. I mean, I've worked on environmental issues for over 2 decades, and within that time, we've seen a huge increase in interest in environmental issues, and going green has become really mainstream. And there's so many people who want to do something good, and that's really great. I think on the other hand, we do need to be careful with what future we choose, because going back to something we were talking about earlier in the conversation is that there is a lot of greenwashing. So there are different shades of green when you look at what our future could look like. And we need to look at our options very honestly and very factually, and sort of decide what are really the good choices, because there could be quite a few things to choose from. And there are companies who are deliberately creating a lot of noise. And that makes it perhaps difficult for the public to make the right choices. I mean, we can't expect from consumers to go into the supermarket and expect and know the environmental story, because there is one behind every single product on the shelves. We need to make sure that those products don't actually end up on the shelves anymore, so that the people don't have to make those choices. But it is very important to have a very broad basis of environmental understanding, of environmental awareness, because that really helps policymakers. It helps to legitimize the right choices.
Yes, so true. And Laura, any action, hope?
Yeah, just additional to all of those, I agree. At least with our content, you know, is really understanding that there's so much nuance in all of these issues, and that I think we've gotten to a divided place that we are because we've thrown these blanket labels over demographics and sectors and communities, and to really listen to the voices on the ground. You know, other films in the Life and Land series, we hear from Indigenous communities, different types of rural communities. And it's consistent across the board that we need to listen to the voices on the ground and really look to that community to guide the work. Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable at all. No matter what you put into place, it will not carry forward and will not be sustainable if it's not led and dictated by the people on the ground that will be carrying it forward. So I think it's important to continue to be open to learn together, and go into things without our own assumptions about other people, and just have conversations.
Yeah. Have these projects changed you guys as people? Have they influenced your lives? Like, you know, you find yourselves having conversations now with new friends or new farmers, or has it changed you at all? Any of you, your project, are you now a different filmmaker, different person, different artist because you made your movie? or were you always, conscious and a conservationist and, green, if you will? Because I tell you, watching your movies, I am now more
Well,
educated, more aware, and
Well, I can say that I mean I really enjoyed doing the research for this film because it's been an issue that I knew I kind of had on my radar, but there's
Mhm.
so many ramifications of this. There's so many branches of the issue that I spent a lot of time researching this and reading up on it, and I'm very appreciative that the project basically allowed me to immerse myself, to use that pun, in this issue, and that was great. And then to translate that back into a film that's short but still kind of covers the issue, that was a wonderful challenge.
Anyone else, has their life changed a little bit because of this project? Molly, you weren't thrown in jail?
Thankfully, no, not this
Good.
time. We have good lawyers. No, but I think it's we've done other things kind of in these types of actions, and I think the more and more that I do it, the more I feel a sense of possibility and freedom around the power that we have to confront the powers that be in really unconventional ways that aren't just kind of straightforward protesting or straightforward boycotting or whatever. Like, we have a remarkable amount of creative power to take the trapdoors and the secret entryways and like there's so many things, so many ways that we can come at these issues creatively. And so I think I feel an expanded sense of possibility that way.
And you can make a difference if we take action
Yeah.
in whatever way that may be. Well, we don't have much more time. I'm going to give you one more chance to say anything I may not have asked you or that you want to say, and also ask you, what's next in your careers or with these films, or add anything else you'd like to add that I didn't ask you. Laura, do you want to go?
Sure, yeah. We're in the thick of pushing out the full project. So 4 30-minute films and 18 podcast episodes. And that will all be coming out in May.
And where can we find your podcast episodes?
They'll primarily all live online under Stories for Action, our media brand. And then we'll be starting on the next season of films. And we want this to kind of be an ongoing entity to communicate these stories, but also we'll be doing events around the West that pair screening of the content with workshopping of this type of community-led collaborative approach on the land. And that's a big part of why we did these films, is to really have it be a kickoff for workshopping, panels, get people talking and bringing these types of communities together to see how these approaches can apply in their location. So we'll be on the road with it.
Great. That's great to hear. Ali, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, the project continues. The film has been used as a way to launch the deep intricacies of what they're actually doing out there, and I think it's really helped gain traction of understanding the community and the wildlife. And there are now international investors, almost perhaps who are looking to sort of help the communities to almost enable them to continue their lives, but in a kind of bought up way, so that they're not having to stop what they do in the name of rewilding. They're able to almost kind of rent their land in a really kind of clever, considered way. And so I'm hoping that the film will continue in that as it grows and grows, and that the land mass and the community keep enjoying that cohesion. So and then various other projects that are community led as well that have been going on. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Martin, what's next for you?
Yeah, keep it very brief. So for people who want to get involved, who want to know more about the issue, the take-home message is defendthedeep.org. Defendthedeep.org. That's where you can find out more about this issue and where you can take action. And very specifically for people involved in businesses, noseabedmining.org. So noseabedmining.org. That's where businesses can sign up to this business statement and increase the pressure on the deep sea mining industry. The future of the deep sea is going to be decided within the next few years. So it'd be great if people can rally around this issue.
far out. And Molly, any
Yeah.
follow-up?
Yeah. So the fight against this pipeline continues. The coalition that's been fighting is continuing to do so. And you can go to the Stop ECOP website to learn how to get involved and learn who the targets are there. And for our part, as in our sort of activist collective, these projects are endless. There's so many more. So I'm sure we'll be up to more of the same.
Well, good. Don't stop. All your films are hugely important and timely, and it's good that you made them. Thank you for making them. I'm thanking you personally for making them. Thank you for making them for our film festival and for sharing with the world. And keep doing what you're doing. We need you. Stay green. Stay strong.
Thank you, Jason.
Good luck to you. It was a pleasure to meet you. And hey, that's the end of our Q&A, everybody. Thank you for supporting independent film and green films. Thank you for watching. Bye, everybody.
Okay.